This is KGW News at noon.
It was the case that kept us up at night. We all believed that Jesse Johnson was just the wrong guy.
Jesse Lee Johnson spent almost 20 years on death row, but now he's getting a new chance at freedom. Hello, everyone. I'm Brenda Braxton. The Oregon Court of Appeals is ordering a new trial for Johnson, thanks to a key witness that the defense and investigators never talked to until now. In 2004, Johnson was sentenced to death for the 1998 murder of Harriet Thompson. The new witness, Patricia Hubbard, was Thompson's neighbor at the time. Hubbard says she heard screams, then saw a white man with long hair run away.
The first thing that jumps out at you is you have an African-American client on death row and you know, wow, something's wrong here. And that is the person that obviously was running from the house that morning is not the same race as the person that's been accused and convicted.
With this new evidence, Oregon's Attorney General could appeal Johnson's conviction to the state Supreme Court, or the Marion County DA could order a new trial or even dismiss the charges. Johnson admits he'd been at Thompson's house before, but he's always maintained his innocence. Well, over the last year and a half, the pandemic pushed issues related to mental health front and center. That's why we're taking a moment at the top of our newscast to talk about National Depression Screening Day. Healthcare providers say October 6th is a good reminder to check in if you're feeling down. Your doctor can help you determine if your symptoms need treatment. According to the World Health Organization, depression affects about 4% of the population. That's more than 260 million people.
Research is showing us that depression is increasing, particularly in young people. There is also some good research to show there's a correlation between how much social media exposure young people get and how that impacts depression or anxiety.
Therapist Chelsea Meyer says depressed children experience most of the same symptoms that adults do, like changes in their sleeping or eating habits. That's why it's important for parents to speak with their kids openly about mental health. Multnomah County has a mental health call center. The number is there on your screen. It's 503-988-4888. You can call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. A new setback as Portland tries to solve the homeless crisis here. As Pat Doris reports, the city had to nix a planned homeless village because it was located in a floodplain.
When the city recently announced the locations of 3 homeless villages it would build on public land by the end of the year, this lot near the Springwater corridor, not far from Precision Cast Parts, was on the list. But we wonder if anyone actually visited the place, because if they did, they somehow missed that the lot sits at the bottom of a large hill and that there are wetlands all around it. It's so wet, there's a sign asking people not to feed the ducks. The city now admits no one checked to see if the lot sits in a floodplain. It does, and now it's off the list for the homeless village. Neighbors, including Stephen Johnson, could not believe the site was picked in the first place.
I've worked in underwriting for commercial projects for a while now, and flood searches is kind of one of the first things you want to do. They're not expensive, and the FEMA records are really clear on where there are floodplains. But just looking at where they'd drawn the box on the map, I thought, well, isn't about half of that underwater?
Yes, turns out that's about right. But neighbors say the location is not the only thing the city bungled. The city also failed to communicate.
Probably the most upsetting thing was just that there was no effort at communicating to the neighborhood about it. That there was no buy-in, that they didn't brace me for it or tell me if it had some kind of special mission or some kind of a useful thing like that.
Last week, when announcing the locations for the villages, City Commissioner Dan Ryan, who is in charge of all this, spoke boldly about the plan.
First of all, you should know this about me. I like to set goals. I like to set ambitious goals. And I like to be held accountable to do all we can to achieve them.
Apparently, that does not include being held accountable on camera when there are mistakes. I wanted to talk with him today about the Springwater location, but was told he's not available today or any day for the rest of the week. His office instead offered a written statement. It says he's disappointed and moving on with the project. In the meantime, some question whether it matters that the lot is in a floodplain. Take a drive, as I did, along Southeast Foster past 112th in the Johnson Creek floodplain, and you'll see more than a few vehicles used by the homeless living there. The floodplain issue is likely a minor embarrassment in the big scope of things, but it does feed the feeling of some in Portland, including cyclist Richard Younts, who often rides in the Springwater area. The feeling is that the city has lost its way and is now stumbling through the dark.
The whole issue of all these camps and where to put them and how to fund it and what to do, I don't think it's ever going to get resolved.
Pat Doris, KGW News.
Now the big developments surrounding the Portland Thorns. Today, the general manager is on leave and the team staged a protest during last night's match. 6 minutes into the game against the Houston Dash, both teams stopped playing and then they stood together midfield. The Thorns are supporting two former teammates who accused their coach, Paul Riley, of sexual harassment and coercion back in 2015. The athletes say their 6-minute pause last night was to recognize the 6 years that it took those players to be heard. Now, as for GM Gavin Wilkinson, the players demanded he be put on leave until the Thorns finish investigating how the team handled the Riley scandal. Two other teams around the league also staged midfield protests last night, including the North Carolina Courage. Paul Riley coached them too, but the team fired him recently. The Players Association says from here on out, athletes will not answer any questions from the media that don't relate to abuse or systemic change within the league. Okay, we also have some news from NASA this afternoon. It is planning to crash a spacecraft into into an asteroid's mini moon to try and change its path. It'll be knocked off course just a fraction of a percent, but that's enough for scientists here on Earth to record the changes. This is part of an ongoing mission to protect Earth from space junk and other potentially dangerous stuff just floating around out there somewhere. The craft will go into orbit on November 23rd aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket, but the actual crash won't happen until September of next year.